FAA now saying none of those specific planes should be in the sky, grounding them until they...
Dozens of MD-11s now grounded by two of the nation's top parcel carriers, FedEx and UPS.
For the first time in decades, every McDonnell Douglas MD-11 inches the world is grounded. Not by choice, but by emergency order. In a single night, both FedEx and UPS, two of the most powerful cargo airlines on the planet, parked more than 50 aircraft. A fleet that once crossed oceans and continents, suddenly silenced. What could possibly force such giants to halt their workhorses overnight? What kind of danger hides in the design of a jet that's faithfully carried the world's freight for over 30 years? When the FAA issues an emergency directive, it's not routine. It's the loudest alarm in aviation regulation. On November 8, 2025, that alarm sounded under the code 2025-2351, and it covered every MD-11 and MD-11F worldwide. The wording left no room for debate. An unsafe condition is likely to exist or develop in other products of the same type design. In plain English, if one jet failed this way, the rest could too. The order grounded every MD-11 until further inspection and corrective actions were complete. But there was a catch. There were no corrective actions yet. No checklist, no modification, no timeline. Just one instruction: do not fly. Within hours, UPS parked 27 aircraft, about 9% of its fleet. FedEx followed with 26 to 28 jets idled at Memphis, Indianapolis, and Paris CDG. Overnight, some of the busiest cargo ramps on Earth went eerily quiet. Even during the 7 to 37 MAX crisis, operators had a compliance pathway. This time, there was none. Analysts described the moment as a stunned silence across the industry. The MD-11, a workhorse of global logistics, was frozen mid-stride. Everything traces back to UPS Flight 2976, the MD-11 that suffered a catastrophic left engine separation during takeoff in Louisville. It was a moment that stunned everyone who's ever trusted the tri-jet's strength. I won't retell that event, we've already covered it in detail, but here's what matters now. That single failure set off one of the fastest regulatory reactions in modern aviation history. Within 24 hours, Boeing and UPS jointly advised a precautionary grounding. By the next morning, the FAA had turned that advice into law. From incident to global grounding, less than 48 hours. For context, after American Airlines Flight 1979, it took nearly 2 weeks before the DC-10 was pulled from service. Even the 7 to 37 MAX, which involved 2 fatal accidents, took months of investigation before grounding. So why the urgency this time? Because early evidence pointed to a structural failure that wasn't unique. If one pylon or mount could rip away under normal thrust and rotation loads, there was a real chance others were already weakening invisibly. Investigators quickly realized this wasn't about a single bolt or maintenance slip. It hinted at a deeper design-level vulnerability, one that might have been building across the global fleet for decades. That's why the FAA didn't wait. They couldn't. When the system that holds a 90-inch turbofan to an aging wing fails, there are no second chances. And this isn't just about the crash itself. It's about an aircraft that's been living on borrowed time, an aging yet essential part of the world's logistics network. A design that once represented progress, now forced to face its own history. To understand that, we have to look at what made the MD-11 so extraordinary and so difficult from the very beginning. The MD-11 was born from ambition, McDonnell Douglas's final attempt to keep pace with Boeing and Airbus. Launched in 1986 and first flown in 1990, it was essentially a reimagined DC-10 with longer wings, winglets, glass cockpit technology, and a promise of lower fuel burn. It kept the same tri-jet layout, but engineers trimmed the tailplane to cut, drag, and boost efficiency. That change worked on paper. In the air, it made the aircraft pitch sensitive and less forgiving during takeoff and landing. To tame it, designers installed an elaborate longitudinal stability augmentation system, blending mechanical controls with early digital logic. It gave the MD-11 a personality all its own, precise, powerful, but demanding respect. For airlines, it offered long range and heavy payload in a sleek, modern package. But the timing was wrong. The early 1990s belonged to the twin jets, the A3-37-67, and later the 777, more efficient and cheaper to operate. Passenger carriers soon dropped the MD-11, selling them off to cargo operators who valued power over passenger comfort. And that's where the jet found its true home. FedEx, UPS, and Western Global transformed it into a freight powerhouse. It could lift over 200,000 pounds of cargo halfway around the world, bridging continents every night. But beneath the reliability lay an inconvenient truth. Most of these airframes are now over 30 years old, and unlike passenger jets, they rarely rest. Cargo cycles are harsher, high weights, quick turns, long hauls, often to less than ideal airfields. Those stresses accumulate invisibly: metal fatigue, corrosion in hidden joints, microscopic cracks in pylon mounts. And because the MD-11 uses an engine pylon structure derived from the DC-10, it carries forward the same architectural weaknesses that doomed Flight 19 decades ago. Still, the MD-11 refused to retire quietly. Even after newer 777 and A3-50 freighters arrived, airlines kept their MD-11 flying, a testament to its durability and range. It became a symbol of persistence in aviation, loud, complex, and stubbornly alive. Until now, a machine that survived 3 decades of change finally met a limit written into its own metal. When you strip the MD-11's complexity down to its bones, you find that everything depends on a handful of metal connections, literally bolts and beams that hold the engines to the wings. And that's exactly where investigators are looking right now. The engine pylons, which attach each turbofan to the wing, are among the most stressed components on any jet. They absorb thousands of pounds of torque, vibration, and heat every flight. During takeoff, especially on a tail-heavy trijet like the MD-11, those forces spike dramatically. As the aircraft rotates, the engines experience something called gyroscopic precession. It's a twisting motion that applies lateral loads through the pylon mounts, far beyond simple thrust. Early reports suggest a failure of the pylon to wing mounting structure, specifically where the engine's fuse pins and forward attached fittings connect to the main spar. These are designed to release cleanly during an extreme overload, preventing catastrophic wing damage. But if fatigue cracks develop inside the fitting itself, the release mechanism becomes unpredictable. It can let go when it shouldn't. We've seen this before. In 1979, American Airlines Flight 191, a DC-10, lost its left engine and pylon for similar reasons: a hidden fracture along the upper pylon flange. That failure changed how engines were mounted and inspected forever. The MD-11 inherited that same fundamental design. Boeing, which absorbed McDonnell Douglas in 1997, has been responsible for continued airworthiness ever since. And now, history may be repeating. Early metallurgical findings indicate long-term stress corrosion and fatigue propagation in the same region of the wing structure. The FAA's interim note makes it clear: no approved corrective actions yet identified. That line tells you everything. There is no proven way to inspect or reinforce these mounts without major disassembly, meaning the only safe action is to ground every aircraft until a fix exists. In essence, the MD-11's aging architecture has reached the limits of what regular maintenance can protect. This is a structural fatigue problem, not a procedural one, and those are the hardest kind to solve. When 50 long-haul freighters disappear overnight, the world feels it. FedEx and UPS together move nearly 15% of all global air freight capacity. And for both, the MD-11 was their long-range muscle, connecting Asia with North America, the Middle East with Europe, and filling the overnight express networks that feed global trade. Now, that lift is gone. Analysts estimate a temporary shortfall of nearly 5,000 tons of daily cargo capacity. That's forcing reroutes to smaller aircraft, mainly 767 seconds and 777 seconds, and even leasing wet charter capacity from foreign carriers. The timing couldn't be worse. This grounding hit in the fourth quarter of 2025, right as the holiday shipping surge peaks. Freight forwarders are already warning of 5-8% spikes in cargo rates due to reduced wide-body availability. It's not a crisis yet, but it's a major logistical headache and a financial one. For UPS and FedEx, this event may accelerate what was already planned. the retirement of all MD-11 by 2032. The difference is that now, that timeline may compress into just a year or two. Industry observers are calling it the quiet end of an era. The MD-11 once bridged continents with unmatched range and payload, but now its complex maintenance demands and structural risk may have finally outweighed its usefulness. Even Western Global Airlines, a smaller operator still running about a dozen MD-11, has reportedly halted operations while awaiting inspection guidance. When you add it all up, the grounding doesn't just affect one company, it ripples through the arteries of global commerce. And yet, there's another layer here, a technical race behind the scenes to figure out if this aircraft can safely fly again. Right now, multiple investigations are converging. At the NTSB's materials lab in Washington, metallurgists are analyzing the fractured engine mount assemblies recovered from the UPS crash. They're looking for telltale patterns, beach marks from fatigue, evidence of corrosion, or any sign of manufacturing inconsistency. Boeing engineers, meanwhile, are modeling stress loads and proposing possible non-destructive inspection methods, ultrasound, eddy current, or thermography that could detect internal cracking without removing the pylon. If a reliable method is found, the FAA could issue a revised airworthiness directive, allowing limited flight under strict inspection intervals. Until then, every MD-11 sits idle. FedEx is reportedly accelerating its 777F and 767F deliveries, while UPS has requested temporary route exemptions to operate longer sectors with existing twins. Both companies are also exploring cargo swaps through partner networks to balance global capacity. But for the MD-11 itself, the outlook is uncertain. Even if it returns, it may only be for a short, limited service period before full retirement. And in aviation history, this moment feels hauntingly familiar. In 1979, after the DC-10 crash in Chicago, the FAA grounded that aircraft for the very same reason, a pylon separation caused by maintenance, stress, and hidden cracking. 46 years later, the descendant of that design faces the same fate. It's as if history has come full circle, the same failure echoing through time. For over 3 decades, the MD-11 carried the world's cargo from medicines and electronics to letters and dreams across oceans and continents. It wasn't perfect, but it was powerful, and it earned its place through sheer endurance. Today, that endurance has finally met its limit. A single fracture revealed the cost of aging metal and the end of a remarkable chapter in aviation. Perhaps one day, a few of these aircraft will return after inspection. Or perhaps this is truly their final flight. Either way, the MD-11 has left a mark few jets ever could, complex, stubborn, and unforgettable.